All right, let's talk about this lunatic judge Boasberg. So Boasberg, and he's not the only judge that has done this. So there have been people rightfully arrested for threatening the life of Donald Trump. And it's no secret that the Democrats want Trump gone. And so what these judges are doing is they're letting these violent people out. Well, not out. They weren't even in jail. They were arrested, and they're throwing the cases out and letting them just walk. It's completely insane. You have this lunatic woman that they just let go, and then there was this other guy that had a history of violence that they also let go. And so this is it's not surprising, but it is outrageous. And you have the DOJ, which is doing like an okay job. I'll give them an A+ if they start indicting lawfare Democrats and the Comeys and Brennans of the world. But as of now, I would say they're doing like an okay job. I'd give them like a C-, and I think that's a little generous. But things could change. Things could definitely change. Now, there's some areas where they are doing well. They are arresting a lot of criminals, which is fantastic. That's a change. And they are arresting people that are threatening the life of Trump, as they should. So people can't get away with that like they could under Biden. Of course, if you were a conservative and you criticized a pharmaceutical company, you would be at least visited. But anyway, so they're letting these people out. And so on the one hand, you have a problem that's being solved, which is criminals were not being arrested. Now they're being arrested. But then you have another problem where you get these commie judges that just let people walk free. And they're also doing this with like protesters who were violent and throwing bricks at cops, and they just let them walk. And so that's a much more difficult problem to solve, because impeaching judges, I think, is very difficult. And Boasberg should definitely be impeached. I don't know if they will. There's been talk, but Republicans talk shit all the time and then don't end up doing anything. And so this is going to be a continual problem, I think. And I don't really know what the solution is when it comes to these commie judges and how they just let criminals walk free. Also with judges, and this is hilarious, you might recall this was during the time when they were trying to pass that bullshit bill that they claimed was going to help secure the border. This was under the Biden administration. The bill would have let millions of illegals in. Like it was completely made up that it would have solved the problem. Anyway, during that time, there was a leftist talking point that, we need more judges. We need more judges. Okay, well, Trump is giving them more judges. He's giving them 600 judges. And now suddenly they don't want the judges. Because, see, what they really mean is they want commie judges. They want commie judges that'll let every illegal into the country. They want judges that'll let the entire horde in. And Trump is not giving them that. He's giving them normal people judges that if you don't qualify for asylum, you have to go home. These are judges that if they will give removal orders and do what's necessary in order to keep immigration at a sane level. And so now they are pretending, as they usually do, that Donald Trump is breaking the law, and somehow. Sometimes when they don't come right out and lie and say he's breaking the law, they'll use these bullshit terms like he's violating our norms. Well, fuck your norms. You're Democrats. Your norms are child grooming and child mutilation and baby murder. So no one should respect that. No one should respect your norms. Your norms should be flouted right in your face. They're very unhappy about these judges. They're pretending that they are fascists and that they're taking white supremacists off the street and making them judges. Totally made up. Also, I guess I'll tie in this ridiculous story where the government of Guatemala, so there's a bunch of children that belong in Guatemala that were trafficked from Guatemala to America during the Biden administration. And the Trump administration has located some of these children. And the government of Guatemala officially has made a request for their children back Many of these children have families that want their children back in Guatemala. So the Trump administration is facilitating the return of the Guatemalan children to Guatemala where they belong with their families. But you know, commies love trafficking. Commies love child trafficking. They love child slaves. So they filed lawsuits to stop the children from being returned to their families and forcing them to stay longer in foster care, which I imagine the conditions are not great. I'm sure some of them are okay, but you know, a lot of the foster care facilities are not optimal. And on top of that, there's a lot of trafficking. There's a lot of trafficking done at these facilities. Remember that nightmare story about the girl in Maryland was trafficked through the whole system from Maryland to Texas and back, and they fortunately were able to get her out of there and get her out of the system and return her to her grandmother. But that was a terrible story. So the Democrats are holding these kids hostage. Totally insane. And then they have the audacity to claim that Trump is actually kidnapping them and Trump is actually trafficking children because he put them on planes to be returned to their families in Guatemala. Again, totally insane. I have a working theory that these people are in reality literal demons. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm 70%, something like that. And it's absolutely evil what they're doing, holding kids hostage away from their families in order to keep them so they would eventually likely be trafficked. I imagine there's some reform happening. I think there'll probably be less trafficking under the Trump administration, but a lot of these commies, they don't care that Trump is in power and they'll keep doing what they're doing. So very dark story, but hopefully that gets resolved. And hopefully Trump just puts them on the plane and ships them out of here anyway. They don't belong here. They belong to their families in Guatemala. What kind of a person would hold kids hostage that were trafficked and prevent them being reunited with their family? What kind of person would do that? Well, my suspicion is a person wouldn't do that, but a demon would. A demon would definitely do that. That is definitely what you would do. And you would take any of these scenarios. For example, let's talk about leftist policy. What kind of a person at 8 months would support a policy that has a doctor pull the baby out of the mother and kill it? Or I forget the name of the procedure, or I think it would be earlier than 8 months, where they just go in and chop the baby up and suck it out into pieces. What kind of person would support something like that? I don't think a person would. A demon would, though. A demon would support that. Isn't that interesting? I don't know. Like I said, it's just everything is so crazy that you're trying to make sense out of abject evil. And I think that's why a lot of people, and by the way, I'm not the only person saying this. There's plenty of, now that doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean demons exist just because other people are saying it. But a lot of people are observing leftist behavior and are concluding or at least positing the possibility that these are demons. And it's a fascinating thing that's happening. And take any of these. How about the mutilation surgeries? What kind of a person would support the idea of tricking a child into thinking they can be the opposite gender, something that's literally impossible, and then encouraging them to go on body-destroying hormones and encouraging them to chop off their breasts, go through a permanently scarring mutilation surgery to chop their breasts off? And also, these drugs make them sterile. What kind of person would do something like that? I don't think a person would do that. But a demon would. A demon would definitely do that. How about this one? How about what kind of a person would support homosexual pedophiles dressing up as women and reading books, sometimes sexualized books, to little children? What kind of person would support something like that? I don't think a person would support that, but a demon would. I think a demon would. So anyway, it's all very fascinating, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll turn out they're not demons and this is just what people are capable of. I don't know. But it's all very fascinating. Anyway, join us tonight for our Hard News Network live stream. Starts at 9:15 p.m. Eastern on Rumble. That's rumble.com/users/hardnewsnetwork. And I'll see you there.